Reverend Jackson, let me first thank you for keeping hope alive. It seems that every time we see light at the end of the tunnel, someone selling us a train coming after to get us. I've been around here for close to 90 years on Lenox Avenue, and when I hear the boys talking about the problems that we had in Detroit and the difference that gentrification has made and the investments that we made, very few people know what the Harlem looked like, Reverend Jackson, in the 1970s, as you and Percy knew. Every other house was an empty lot. We had rats as big as cats walking the street. We had everybody knew someone that was mugged that week. We had doors just kicked down for people to. The TV was sold before they got to the street. People had 3 locks on the door. One was called a police fox lock. I haven't seen the likes of that since I was a kid. Does anyone know what a police fox lock is? Don't give your age. And so, as you pointed out, that there were people that were getting more on the insurance for abandoning the property than they were in paying the mortgage. And strange fires took place when tenants were outraged. But what happened was the city acquired more property in my congressional district than in any congressional district throughout the city. It was a nightmare just walking the streets. I don't know how many times my wife's pocketbook was snatched. That was a thing, you know. But when we had David Dinkins and all of this property, the city acquired it. So the biggest landowner was in Harlem, was the city of New York. Well, we came up, yes, the empowerment zones, but better than that, the low-income housing bond, which allowed people to invest and be tax exempt on their returns if the money went into low-income housing. Developers were given the property where they could make their profit and the rents would be low. And I'm telling you, the quality of the apartments was first class. Then we had the Harlem Urban Development Corporation, we had so many other things. When the empowerment zone came, it was able to have an economic base, because as economics has it, when people are working, when you create a middle class, you create the demand, then people want to buy locally. And the most important thing about that is that they hire the people. And before a kid would do things that put him in a way that he would be taken away or abused by police or locked up, the biggest preventive measure is having hope for the future that he can do something with his life. So a decent school, the opportunity for a job and a family. At long last, and I just left Eric Holder and Hillary Clinton, and they were just talking about the things that we were doing 40 years. We were right back where we started. But you know, it's amazing. It's really amazing that at this point in time, when we have a president that looks like the slaves that they brought over here, where we had a black mayor, where we had a black attorney general, where state legislators all over are beginning to become of color, we got white folks now that are prepared on the brink of destroying the whole damn country, including the Supreme Court. You know? And so instead of just fighting for equality and human rights and justice, we have to fight to save this damn country that has abused us over these years. But this is a frightening time of the frustration, because when people are not satisfied with their lives, more often than not, they're looking for somebody to scapegoat to justify why they're not doing as well as they think they should be doing. And we have a guy named Trump that has specialized in being able to express in very vulgar terms all of the racism and undercurrents of frustrated people in this country, to such an extent that it's a nightmare, not only for us, but for the powerful in this country as well, that see the country on the verge of being jeopardized because there is no question that he has the slightest knowledge as relates to domestic and international policy, but he does understand how frightened people can get and the dangerous things that people do. So when he says that he can shoot somebody and get elected, that's probably true of the Ku Klux Klan as well. They started out talking about Jesus, but there was nothing wrong they could do once you belong to the group. And we got a little bit of that on both sides of the fence with the frustration that people are feeling, because the one thing we had coming up, no matter how rough things got, was hope. People like Jesse Jackson had a DNA in believing that God was going to help take care of this, and he and Andy Young and John Lewis and Martin Luther King, they had more hope for this country than a kid like me from Lenox Avenue. Because I marched at 54 miles. I cussed every step of the way. There was no way in the world that I could believe that white folks ever was going to let us vote or stop lynching or stop just being evil and mean and enjoying destroying the lives of people. And then when I heard Lyndon Johnson said we should overcome, I just couldn't believe that we saw that light. But the devil never left. They came back to the very same court. And now they're talking about changing everything that they believed in, that we were fighting to be included in, and recognizing that they really thought that the Constitution said you have to be a white male in order to succeed. And that's the way they want it. So anybody of color, and it started with the Europeans. The Irish came, they hated the Italians hated the Poles, the blacks never got off of the hate list, and now the whole country is in jeopardy. And I'm now looking, Reverend, to see why is it that we gave churches, synagogues, and temples tax exemption, because if ever we need a moral compass in this country, if ever we needed someone to come to justify how human beings should treat each other, because the hatred of turning one group against another because of the way they look, when people don't even understand what the Muslim faith is, but we have someone saying that we don't want them in. And the same way the Jews thought that they were German, and the Christians thought they weren't talking about that, it's a disease that's eating the country. So I know that we are discussing issues here as though the country is on a sane path. But being down in Washington, I can tell you that the inmates have taken over the insane asylum. And now it's reaching the point that the people that we had targeted as being our oppressor are attempting to destroy each other. I mean, being a guy from Lenox Avenue, when you started talking about somebody's mama on Lenox Avenue, you were looking for a fight. But you never thought that presidents of the United States would start talking about each other's mothers and calling each other's liars and whatnot. And you never really thought that they would say that the president, if he's black, that his day is limited to the day he's sworn in, and that they're committed to make certain he doesn't function. And they've done a pretty damn good job of that. And so now we're saying that he cannot fulfill a vacancy on the court. So I'm glad that the Reverend has called this meeting, because we're going to need God's help as well as the wisdom of the urban planners. And I just apologize once again for being late and missing the intelligence and the things that I know have come out of the panel. But I was with Hillary Clinton, and if we can hold on to our sanity long enough, by the next time we have the Wall Street work group coming, we'll have a country in order to work with. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, There's only one Charlie Rangel. There he goes.